All right. So I welcome you all into this dellboomi session. In the last session, in the last few sessions, we have talked about the process root shape, right? And we try to understand about the exception shape, right? Also, we try to understand about the notify shape. How can notify shape can be used to send the alerts, right? What kind of alerts can we send?
Email alerts.
We can send email alerts, right? Okay. Does somebody has this account, this invite in the WhatsApp for this session?
Yes, I have.
Can you quickly forward it to me over WhatsApp
Yeah.
itself? There's one guy who
Okay.
is waiting for the session and he's not able to join. Okay. Give me a minute, guys. All right. So these are the three different things which we have seen in the last couple of sessions, I believe, right? And notify shape is not only about logging the stuff, it can also help you to generate the alerts. It can also help you to create user logs, right? Right. So these are the few things we have seen. Then I mentioned that we'll talk about trackable fields. We'll talk about integration with
Yes.
ServiceNow. Right. So first, let's understand trackable fields. Very, very important topic. If you're appearing for the interview, any of the interviews, right? This is kind of a sure short question. So let's understand what are trackable fields, right? So what happens when you work in real time, right? And let's say, you know, there is a process which got failed, right? Maybe because of some xyz reason, maybe there was some data issue, right? So typically what is that unique identifier which can help you to point to that specific instance which got failed? So there might be thousands of instances, right? So there is a process, let's say somebody is firing that process 1,000 times or 10,000 times, but out of that 10,000 times, maybe one or two times that process got failed, maybe, and the reason was the data was not sent properly, right? So which is that mechanism that helps you to point to that specific instance individually so that you can narrow down your search to that specific instance which has issue. How will you do that?
Process reporting.
Okay, you'll go to the process reporting, that's fine, but what would you use in process reporting to go to that specific instance?
Execution ID.
Very nice. You will have to use execution ID, right? And that's why when we were designing the error handling, we were trying to retain this execution ID so that we can point to that specific instance which has an issue, right? This is a unique identifier for each instance which is generated in Boomi, right? And typically, where should we capture this execution ID? Before any try
Before
catch, right?
before try catch it. Yeah.
Yes. But then this execution ID is something which is kind of native to Boomi, right? This is something which is native to Boomi. Business will not understand it, right? How does this execution ID looks like? It will be something like execution, some number or maybe date. The combination of all those things will be there, and that's how you get a unique ID. But if you go to the business, when I say business means maybe the different other teams, right? Or maybe your customers, right? So they will not understand those things, right? They will not understand what is execution ID and all that stuff. They might, what they would understand is, let's say they fired an order and the order number was 10001, and how how would their request look like is, I fired a request for the order with the number 10001, but I haven't received kind of shipment for that order yet, right? Or where is this order stuck? I am not getting any status on this particular order. That's how they will raise a ticket with you, right? Isn't it? When you go to a telecom company and you have some issues, your issue will be from the user perspective. You don't know internally that telecom company is using dellboomi, mulesoft, salesforce, servicenow. You don't bother about that. You, when you call them, you are an end user. You don't bother, you don't care what is there technically, right? So the point I'm trying to convey over here is there is a mechanism to point to that specific instance in boomi, right? Which is we are using execution id. That's fine, but then those execution ids are native to boomi folks. Okay, boomi folk would understand it, which is fine. But then sometimes we need business identifiers to identify the instances individually. Okay, what are trackable fields? Trackable fields are business identifiers that help the support team to identify the instance uniquely. You can write. So this is more or less like execution ID only, but then execution ID is more like specific to Boomi, but these are some business identifiers. And this concept of trackable fields is not only restricted to Boomi, right? Majority of the majority of the integration platforms we have in the market do have this kind of concept, which allows you to basically point to those instances which has got that specific business identifier. So for example, I want to see all such instances which are there in Boomi, which has processed an order with an order ID 10001. Then these trackable fields are important, right? So sometimes what may happen is you may create an order, right? And then you can update the order also. So I would want to see what all instances have got generated in Boomi for 10001. So you will go here and you can check easily. You can check that what all has happened, right? So when we want to use those business identifiers to get to the specific instances which got generated in Boomi, then this will be helpful, right? So for example, you went to Flipkart and you maybe you place an order for a iPhone and maybe a laptop, right? Then you realize I don't need a laptop. Maybe you kind of updated your order, and the way you updated order is maybe you canceled your laptop, right? So now when you get a delivery, maybe you, let's assume that you had chosen a cash on delivery, right? Which is not happening these days, but let's assume that when the delivery is done, maybe you get both at your doorstep, right? So what you might wonder is, I had ordered one, how did I get two, right? I had updated my order, but why didn't they update the order at their end? So then you might raise a ticket, or the person who will come for delivery will raise a ticket. That ticket will go to the internal department. They will see where things went wrong, and then it might happen that they are also using dellboomi internally. So they will say that for this order, you know, the shipment was wrongly sent, where is the issue? So their technical team will go and see where is the issue. So the ticket might come to the integration team also. So integration team will check for this order, what is the issue, right? So if you do not have any kind of business trackable fields, so what will happen is you may have thousands or maybe 10,000s or even lakhs of execution IDs. So it becomes very difficult for you to identify that what went wrong, where is that specific ID. So that's why typically in a lot of enterprises we set this business identifiers so that we can search our instances uniquely, easily. Okay, any questions so far? Okay, so now we'll see how to set it up. It's not so tough. It's pretty easy. So now actually the problem is to test it out completely, we would need I mean a Boomi atom. I have not installed one. That's fine. So now how does it work is it's pretty straightforward. We'll start with a new process. Yeah. So we'll create a new folder here, Boomi training, new folder. Yep. Here we'll create a new component. Maybe let's say process trackable fields. And then how do we go about it? Okay, so we started with the process. Now the steps are very easy. Just try to follow it. You go to the settings, you go to the account information and setup. And here you might need to go to the option called as document tracking. Okay, what is the option? Document tracking. If you do not see this option document tracking for yourself, right, that means the user which has been created for you is not having the rights to create trackable fields. Okay, so you might see that here there are a lot of options, right? User information, email alerts, authentication, account access. There are a lot of options over here. So many of you may not see all the options when you start working for any of the companies. Okay, or you may see all the options. If you're not seeing all the options, that means your access has been restricted to some specific things. Right now my user is an admin user, right? Very rarely you will get your admin users. Okay, earlier whatever account I configured for you, those all were admin users, so you could do anything possibly. But generally when you're working for the companies, they will not give you an admin account until and unless you're a very senior resource, right? So here under the document tracking, you have an option called as trackable fields. So whenever I cover any topic, right, I have seen a lot of people when I interact with them, they will tell me the exact definition in exact words, whatever I have told to them, which is fine, right? But always make it a habit or always make it a practice to take that as a learning point, right? Maybe I try to customize the definitions to make you understand things better, but at the same time you spend some time. Let's say we are talking about trackable fields, right? Go here, just read the documentation once, right? So that way your knowledge will not be subset of my knowledge, right? Your knowledge may be more than my knowledge. So please make it a practice to go and just read a little bit from the documentation, right? So what does the description says over here? The document tracking is used to add custom fields that can be enabled for the documents that are reported on the manage menus process reporting page. Document tracking allows you to define document level trackable fields to help you research documents that are passed through connectors. So this is a very, very important point. Document tracking allows you to define document level trackable fields. Okay, so these fields are at what level? At the document level, right? Document tracking allows you to define document level trackable fields to help you research documents that are passed through connectors. So what do we do over here is, let's say I define a trackable field, maybe. So there can be different ways of defining it, right? So for example, I can define trackable field as order ID. Okay. Or else, you can you can give some kind of a generic identifier also. So for example, I give a generic identifier, business identifier. That's all. Now when I make, and it has different data types, character, number, date time. And what I'm saying is the name is business I'm sorry, business identifier, right? So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to give a generic name. Why I'm giving a generic name? So let's say I have 5 different processes. In one process, I might be processing orders. In another process, I might be processing the data for the customers. In another process, I might be processing the data related to invoices. So one thing is you have 5 different trackable fields, one for orders, one for customers, one for invoices, and another for maybe items, and another maybe for leads, another for opportunities. That is also fine. That can be one approach. Another possible approach is that I create a generic stuff with with a generic name such as business identifier, and I will map all these different values of all these different entities in this business identifier, and I will use same to search my instances. Okay, so let's understand what I'm talking about. Okay, so we have just configured the trackable field over here, right? So you have created a placeholder, but the data will be generated in the process, right? The data is not generated over here. This is just a placeholder, right? So you can create over here. If you want to change the order, you can use these things, right? Which is fine. The order is not going to make much difference over here. We can go to the build tab. Yeah. So now here we have seen different connectors. So far we have seen a Salesforce connector, we have seen a database connector, we have seen a disk connector, right? We have seen an AWS S3 connector. So now let's say I take a disk connector. So there is an option get and all. You configure a connection. So let's say the directory is empty. Okay. Why would we keep a directory empty? Whenever you want to impose the extensions, right? Yes. Whenever you want to impose the extensions, you can keep the connection details empty so that you are bound to use extensions because it is recommended to use extensions, right? So what we'll do is we'll go here to D drive and we may have some files, right? Already created. Where can we go? We can go to the employees. We have a lot of files over here, right? In this directory. So I'll say D employees. And what is the file name which we want to read? Right now, let's say I want to read this employees one. Yeah. So I'll go to my file filter and here I'll give what I'll give employees.xml. Yep. So this all is fine. Now you have to observe few things over here. Do you see there is an option of archiving? So this is again an interview question, right? Like how do you archive the file? So by default also out of the box, there is an option to archive the files in the connector itself where you can write archive document and you can give the directory where do you want to archive it. Yes. So this is one important thing that you can archive. Well, right. You can automatically archive the documents that pass through a connector for auditing or troubleshooting purpose when enabled. Documents are archived to a specific local directory on the machine where the atom is running. Yes. But right now we are not talking much about it. You can try it out. There is another option called as tracking. Now, when we are talking about the tracking, what does it say? What is required? Trackable fields are required. Now, do we have trackable fields? So if you click on plus, do you see two trackable fields? Yes or no? And where did we configure those trackable fields?
Settings. In the account settings.
Under the account settings, right? There we have configured it. So now we can use either of these. Okay, so let's say we use business identifier. Now, when you say business identifier, so this is kind of a placeholder, right? This trackable field is a placeholder to which we need to map a value, and that value will be generated at the runtime, right? And that value will be nothing but the data, right? Which we pull from the files. So we go to here, we have different options, right? Here we have different options. So you can give some static value or else you can give any of these options. Okay. You can give any of these options. So now the file which is being read here is this one. Let me open it. Now this is the file which is being read. Yeah. Now this file has multiple employees data, isn't it? This file has a multiple employees data. So now what do you think if I want to basically go and search on the basis of employee ID, right? Or probably location, right? So in this settings, in this parameter value, what should I choose?
Profile element.
Very nice. We should choose profile element. Why should we choose profile element? Because the data is represented with the help of profile. I mean the data structure, the metadata of the data is represented with the help of profiles in Boomi. And which type of profile should we use?
XML.
Very nice. We should choose XML. Do we have the profile?
Yes.
We don't have, right? This is a new account, isn't it? So I'll have to create the profile quickly. So now one option is we can create it manually or we can also do an import, right? So what we'll do is we'll go to this Boomi Learning. Okay, where is that file? So it is in deep employees. It is over here. This is the file. I'll say open. I'll say next. Finish. So whenever you use a sample XML file, right, to create a profile, you might see that the same element getting repeated multiple times. So you can always go and delete those. Okay. This is not the right way. You can use this kind of mechanism only when you know that always I will get 2 employees or 4 employees or 3 employees, then this is fine. When you want that to be dynamically decided, you have to go to employee and what you have to change.
Max occurs unbounded.
Very nice. You have to change max occurs to unbounded. Very good. Okay. So save and close. These all things we have covered earlier also. Good that you guys remember. Okay, then we go to employee. What should we choose here?
Employee ID.
Employee ID. So we have set the employee ID over here. Save it, save and close. And now that's all. I mean, so now this can be this business trackable field can only be set in the connectors. Okay, but then that does not mean that it can be set only in the disconnector, right? So for example, oh my god, I don't know why the authorization field. I hope they have not blocked this account of mine.
Or if this comes again, account will go.
I don't know what will go. What are they doing? Maybe there is some internet issue at my end. Can you guys hear me properly?
Yes.
Okay, give me a moment. Okay. Uh, just give me a minute, guys. I'll kind of stop sharing. There seems to be some issue probably. Give me a minute. Oh God, I think that account is also gone. What should I do? I don't know whether it is happening for everyone because I tried with different mail IDs. They are not letting the training accounts to be there actually. Yep, that account got deleted. Okay, give me 2 minutes. We'll figure out something. I was not expecting this to also blow away. We'll have to figure out something. I really don't know. I mean, I'm sorry, but then I'm myself helpless right now. I don't know what to tell you. Is there anyone whose account is working and we can use that account for practice?
Yeah, Sumit, I am Sai.
Yeah.
My account is working, Sumit.
Okay. You created it separately?
Yes, Sumit.
Yeah.
I,
Can you?
I have I have to share my credentials.
Will you be able to ping me on WhatsApp? Is that possible?
Yes, yes. I will watch.
Yeah, that will be helpful. Yeah. We'll be at least able to move forward. Okay. I think we have some intermittent solution. So you configured by Gmail account?
Yeah, Sumit. And I will temporary mail ID doing Google search. I will that's it.
Okay, that's nice. Please explain how you have done it so that maybe other people can also follow.
Okay, Sumit.
All right, I think we have some solution. Uh, Let me start sharing my screen. But you have not done any practice. Or maybe this is a new account for you. I don't know.
Yes, yes, Sumit. This is new account.
How did you create this? Can you just quickly tell us because so that other people can also create the account in similar way?
Okay, Sumit.
I mean, can you tell us now?
Now, now I am comfortable, Sumit. After session, I will explain.
Okay. Okay, fine. So guys, what we were doing, and do we have any atom attached to it?
Yes, Sumit.
Okay. There is an atom, but the only problem with this is we don't know his directory structure. So I don't know if those files we can read and all that stuff. Okay, that's fine. Can you place some file in some directory and can us, is that possible?
Yeah, Sumit.
Okay, so what I was telling is, meanwhile, we'll create a new process. We'll go to this Boomi training once again, new component. Okay, we'll quickly repeat if it was not understood because there are some hiccups, right? So we created this small process. Then where did we go? We go to the settings, user information, and here do you see which one is this document tracking, right? So here we added it. So if you go to the user management, you will see it is his Gmail account, right? And he has an administrator role, right? So here we can add in the same account also we can add more users, and that's how I added you. So if you create a kind of a, let's say, common account, right? So every user will not have a different account in the companies. So within the same account, typically you will be added as users. So you can go here, you can add the email address, the first name, the last name, and you can decide the role, right? Administrator is the topmost role you have. And if you do not want to give all the rights, then you can go for standard user. Okay. If you want someone to do development, but then that person should not have all the rights, you can go for standard user. If there is someone who wants to do only the support, then you go for this Boomi default support user, right? I think this is fine, right? So we go to this document tracking, and here we can have trackable fields. Here you can add the trackable fields. We added just one, maybe something like business identifier. Hit OK, right? And then we go to the build tab. In the build tab, I have a start shape. Right now, nothing is there. We could add disk, right? We can add a disk connector the way we did just some time earlier. In the connection, maybe we don't write anything. Let us have the name, whatever it is. In the operation, we need to configure something, right? So maybe I will say maximum files to read one for now. And first, let's say I want to test it out if I'm able to read something. So what I'll do is I'll enable extensions and I'll enable directory, save. Here I'll put a stop shape. Do we have any file in the D drive or any drive you want? So sometimes it takes some time, to this for this to populate. I don't know. See, for example, this is not coming. It takes some time. So let's see. I don't know. Do you have a D drive site?
Yeah, Sumit, but files are deleted. That's create a new account.
Okay, let's try to see if we are able to read anything. So now, though I'm using his account from my machine, right? But then this Atom is installed in his machine. So this disconnector is not going to work on my machine, right? And this was a point I emphasized when we started with the sessions initially, right? That it is going to work on the machine where your Atom is running. So now when I go here, it started with a star shape of no data type with a disconnector. And when it is trying to read, it does not find anything. That means nothing is available over here. So we kind of need some file from where we can read the data or some directory from where we can read the data. Do you have any directory from where we can read any kind of XML file? Or you don't have one? If let's say we see the Salesforce connector also, right? For that matter. So if you'll go here in the operation, right? Do you see an option to tracking? So in all the different connectors, you will find this kind of tracking option. This will help you to basically map the values to the trackable fields. And then the same thing you can see in the process reporting tab also. So let's do one thing. Let's forget about disk. I don't know. There are a lot of dependencies on his machine. And again, I don't want. Uh, Even for this one, we need to have a login to the Salesforce, right? Okay, so we need to, I don't remember exactly, but let me try. So maybe this was my account. Yeah, this was my account and it is asking for some kind of a passcode, which should become on Gmail. Let me open my Gmail. Okay, give me a moment. I will just quickly. Okay. So you see, I got a mail from Salesforce where it is giving me the passcode or the verification code. 78294. Okay, so we log into the Salesforce. If you remember, we use the Salesforce instance, right? When we were doing certain examples with the Salesforce. So I can go here and I can quickly type Salesforce, right? So you will see verify your identity, verify. There is something called a security token, right? The security token will be required, right? This is a new account, isn't it? So some people face problem with the security token, right? I mean, their connectivity doesn't get established. So what we can typically do in all such scenarios is uh, you can basically take a notepad, put your password, concatenate security token, because sometimes when you type directly in this details, right? So so when you try to go and create a connection straight away, sometimes what happens is you feel that you have configured everything right, but then you end up adding some spaces and all that issues, and because of those all problems, your login might not be successful. Okay, and you might wonder that you are adding everything fine, but why it is not working? Because sometimes some extra spaces and all that stuff gets added, right? So here, yes, this is my security token. I'll go back to my Boomi platform. I'll add the password, the security token, hit apply, save and close. And now we can configure the operation. I hope you guys are aware. We already discussed about all these steps, right? And what is the operation? Let's say we want to pull the accounts data. So it is logging into Salesforce. Yes, the connection details were correct. Account, next. Okay, I'll say next, finish. Okay, so here one SOCL is there. Select blah, blah, blah from account. Now here you can set some tracking also, right? So let's say I want to do the tracking on the basis of name, right? Account name will help me to easily track. Generally, you should use tracking field to be something which is unique. Okay, generally you should try to choose trackable field as something which is unique. Okay, but it is not mandatory that trackable field always has to be unique, right? Eventually it should help you to basically point to that specific instance, right? That has to be the main criteria. So right now what I want to do is I want to set a tracking. There is a trackable field, and to this trackable field I want to set a value. And what I have to choose? Profile element. What kind of profile?
XML.
XML, right? So Boomi automatically creates a profile for Salesforce, right? When we configure the operation. And from here, what we would choose?
Name.
We can choose the name, right? So let's look for the name.
It's in the beginning only.
Okay, it's in the beginning only here, right? We'll choose the name. Perfect. We'll say save. We'll say save and close. We'll say okay. So your operation got configured. Now, another thing you have to understand is when you are selecting it right now, you're pulling a lot of data, right? In this, there might be a lot of data in the Salesforce, right? So here there is an option to define the query limit also. So let's say I want to pull only 10 accounts at a time. The reason why I'm telling you this is this might be helpful when you are working in real time, because you might not want to pull the complete data set. You might want to pull only the selective data set. So when I added 10 over here, if you see this SOCL, what will happen is it will run and it will read only 10 documents initially. That's all. Yeah. So it's up to you whether you want to set it out or not. Good to set it out. Why we should set it out? When you're working on the build tab, there is some limitation on the number of documents. Do you recollect what is the limitation?
100 MB or 100 documents.
Yes. So 100 MB or 100 documents, whichever gets exhausted first, right? So right now what I'll do is I have to see what are the accounts or what are the things we have over here, right? So how can we go to the accounts? We'll go here, we'll type accounts. Can you see some accounts? These were created by us, isn't it? Testing Boomi account, blah, 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 blah. So what we will do over here is, so right now, let me try to keep a query limit as, let's say somewhere around 100. Okay. Save and let's run it. Okay, usually it doesn't take so long of a time. Why? Actually, internally the process might have reached to Salesforce connector and it must be already executing. Okay, but sometimes this does not reflect like that, and maybe it is taking more time because we are reading so many documents, right? How many documents are we trying to read right now?
100.
100 document, right? So probably that is the reason why it takes so much of time for execution.
No, Sumit, I also face this issue every time I start my like Boomi, I log in into account, so I have to every time restart the atom and then it works fast.
I don't know. I have never faced this issue in my account, but
Yeah,
yeah, this may,
I'm
so we
facing
can
this
try
issue, yeah.
actually. Let's enable the other one. Okay.
Yeah, because I did now, I restart the item and now when I ran the process, it is like it has completed the process execution.
Okay. I use a different atom now, and we come to the stop shape. So we can see a lot of documents. Yes. And when you go here, let's see the data once. So we'll keep some names handy. Okay. APR underscore H communications. If you remember, this account was created by us only, APR underscore H communications and all. This APR we prepended for April, right? Okay, so we'll keep two right now. So this looks fine, right? But then the use of process reporting only comes into play when you deploy your process. In the build tab, you will not see any relevance of the trackable fields, right? So these trackable fields will only come into the picture when you kind of deploy your process, right? So what we'll do is, so let's say this Salesforce connection, I want to keep extensible. Okay, so what I'll do here, I'll go to the drop down and maybe URL, user, password, this all details, I will keep extensible. I will keep extensible. So now we have to see whether we have any environment or not, because environment is required or not. Yes,
Yes.
we do need an environment for testing, right? So what we do over here is we say create a package component. And what do we want to do? We want to deploy. So these all steps, I think you know, right? So we are not repeating. So we will quickly go and deploy to the dev environment. So while deploying, it checks the dependencies and all, everything looks good. The process got deployed, right? So we can go to the atom management. In this atom management under dev environment, do we have any atom attached right now? No, right? So I can move this atom over here. So I this time moved the test atom cloud, isn't it? Yes, this is a cloud-based atom, right? Or an atom cloud, right? So this was a local one. I chose this one under deployed processes. Do you see the process deployed over here? Yes or no? So now to answer your question, Priyanka, here, see, you go to the environment, you go to the environment extensions. Do you see these environment extensions over here?
Yes.
You can check or uncheck or change the values. So this is the place from where you can play around with the extensions once the deployment is done. Okay. So now our main job is to understand the process reporting and basically this trackable field. So we'll go to the manage and we'll go to the process reporting. So we don't see anything in the process reporting. That's fine. So let's say we go and we execute the process. We have to select an atom and we have the process execute. So when you execute it, you can refresh. Do you see some execution going on?
Yeah.
Yes. So this is a manual execution. And if you see this symbol, this indicates it's a manual execution, but it worked absolutely fine. So in one, so in means inbound. What does this in indicates? So throughout this process, how many documents were produced in the inbound call and how many documents were produced in the outbound calls? That will be reflected over here. How many inbound document? 1. And how many outbound documents? 24. Yes. Can you see those documents over here? So this is your inbound document and here you can see all your outbound documents. Can you see business identifier over here? First of all,
Yes.
so what I'm saying is, let's say I go to the instance and I go here. Can you see some business identifier over here? Does it help you? You don't need to open every document, right? This is a new feature they have added, I believe. It was not there earlier. So this business identifier, so what happens is in real time, even I have faced this issue. Like sometimes there are 2000 documents or 3000 documents. Now I don't know which so I have to open every document, I have to see the data and I have to look for that specific field. But adding a business identifier is helping me to understand that in this document, there is an account data with the name this, right? So this is helpful. Yes or no? So now another thing is, like this, there might be so many instances, right? Yes or no? So many instances. So now how do I identify that which instances have got the data for, let's say, account is equal to edge communication. Okay. For account is equal to edge communication, which all instances have got data. Right now we have only one instance, but we can have more also, right? In real time, you will have thousands or lakhs of instances, right? So you always have different ways. You can have these identifier like time-based identifier. Then you have like filters based on the atoms. You have the filters on the basis of the process and all that stuff, right? You can always use these, but if this is not helping you out, then use this drop down. And there is an option called as documents. Yes. Now, when you go to the documents, is there an option called as atom, connector type, execution ID, and trackable fields? Yes or no? You choose the trackable field. Now, there are some by default trackable fields which are by default there. But can you see there are a lot of by default trackable fields? Yes or no? For some connectors. It is not there for all the connectors, but for some connector, it is there, some trackable field. Can you see this connector has directly in the file name as a trackable field by default? But can you see some user defined trackable field? And you select this and you search for what? Edge communication you apply. So now what happens is you by default get to the specific instance where you have account with the name Edge communications. Are you understanding? Out of so many instances you may have, you point to that instance where you have account with the name Edge communications. So you can go here, you can see action, you can view logs, you can see the document. So this is your document where you have edge communications. Yes. So you had so many things, but now you are pointing to that specific instance, right? If you want to load execution, you can load execution. Okay. So what do we mean by the load execution? It will load the execution of that specific document, right? So that document was processed as a part of this execution. So do you see you automatically point to that specific execution ID? This document, which has trackable field being mapped to edge communication, was part of this execution. Yes or no? And from here, you can see the complete logs. You can easily figure out what went wrong, which shape got executed, which shape got failed, right? At what time it got executed, whether it is a Boomi issue or something else. So this way you can basically do your research properly, right? By adding a trackable field. Any questions so far? Guys, are you following what we have done? I'll just quickly summarize. We went to the build tab. First, we went to the user information. In the user information, under the document tracking, we created a trackable field, right? This trackable field is kind of a placeholder inside which we can map different possible values. Okay. It is not necessary that you can only map the account name. You can map anything for that matter. If you want to name your trackable field like account name, even that can be done. Okay. It's up to you. Now, then you go to the build tab. These trackable fields are mapped at the connector level, right? Under the operations. So you go to the operations. Here there is a tracking option where you choose the trackable field, which you have defined under the setup. And to this trackable field, I map a value. And this value may be an element from the profile, or it may be all of these different things also, right? Once you do that, then you deploy your process. Once you deploy your process, you kind of execute it. We can execute it manually. It can be a scheduled execution, whatever it is. Then you can search that specific instance here. And there is a drop down executions. There is another drop down documents. You can go over here. So you can see there are a lot of documents, right? Lot and lot. So you can add a filter that I want to use trackable fields, a business identifier trackable field. So let's say I want to use something else this time. So you will go to that specific document, right? You can see when it is processed and all that stuff. But if you want to see the complete execution, you go to the actions and you say load execution. So when you say load execution, you point to that specific execution ID as a part of which this particular document got executed. Let's say, let's do one more thing. Let's execute it one more time. Let's execute it one more time. So I will remove this filter over here. So now how many executions we see here? 2, right? Why do we see 2 executions? Because the process has been executed twice, right? Isn't it? So now again, I go back to my documents. I add a filter, trackable fields, user identifier. Do we see 2 documents? Yes. So that's what I was telling, that it is not necessary that the trackable field always has to be unique. In this case, it's not unique. We have 2 different executions, which is fine, right? And that's what I was telling, that we may have a create order call, we may have update order call, but your order ID will remain same, right? But then you will get an idea that how many different calls you got for that specific business identifier, right? Whether create failed or update failed, which one came first, which one came next, You will get this idea. And now if you want to load the execution for each one of these. So first one, I want to load execution. Second one, I want to load execution. So you can load the complete execution. So if you see the second one, execution is 10:153 IST. This is 9:54:06 IST, right? So this way, it will be helpful for you when you're working as a support guy or when you have to solve certain tickets to have trackable fields. The only downside of trackable fields is it will have certain impact on the performance. Okay. So whenever you are proposing this idea or this kind of solution to your business, you have to be mindful of the fact that this might degrade the performance a bit. Okay, but otherwise it is really helpful to basically track down your instances uniquely and identify the issues faster. Any questions from anyone?
Hi, Smith. This is Somshekar.
Yes, Somshi.
I have a request from my side. Can you give whole summarization of the whole class after completion of the
Your voice is not at all audible. Summarization of what?
one? Hello, Smith.
Yeah.
Is it audible now?
Yeah, I can hear you. There is a lot of background noise coming. I don't know if you're traveling somewhere.
Can you give whole summarization of whole classes after the completion of sessions?
3 times I summarize. Yeah. What kind of summarization you're looking for? I really don't understand.
Not this session, Sumit.
Because we got stuck for 2 times now. We got break for 2 times. Before we got break for 3 days, and now almost 1 week.
Yeah, that's fine. So I mean that break is because of your.
I think we don't take much time. One session is enough, I think.
So you are asking me to summarize all the classes which we have covered.
All the
Yes,
classes
yes,
after the completion of whole session.
Just overview.
Just overview, Sumit.